Hey, are we already on television? On TV, you can see me putting on my mic condom as I get ready for 3 hours of what I hope to be robust talk radio for the masses on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hello, friends. My name is Matt Murphy. It's 12:06. May I be the first to say good afternoon? Well, unless someone has already done it. Good afternoon and welcome to your Friday, June 21st, 2024 is the first full day of summer, and it feels like it outside. Beautiful day in the Music City. Hope it's gorgeous wherever you might be listening on the variety of platforms that we have presented for you on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, to include the radio station from northern Alabama to southern Kentucky and all points in between. Obviously, streaming platforms at your fingertips. Just take us wherever you go on your smartphone technology. Download us at Supertalk 99.7 WTN. We have an app. We encourage you to use that. But if you don't, use anything. I mean, you know, whether it's the iHeart thing or the whatever it might be, you can find us on any streaming platform where there's music, news, or information. And then, of course, Supertalk TV, the aforementioned YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, is up and running. I utilize that on a daily basis. Thank you to U.S. Pest for bringing that to you for 3 hours every day. Thank you to F&M Bank for bringing us the chat for 3 hours every day, for better or worse. It's episode 596 of our proceedings, and it's day 111. Lots for Trump. Give me a horn. Give me something. Give me a horn. Lots for Trump. What? Well, give me the full horn. There we go. It's a kind of a, there we go. Lots for Trump. Day 111, 111, as I continue to grow my hair out in anticipation that we'll have a new president-elect on November 6th of 2024, and I'm not cutting my hair until we have a new president-elect. Let's cross our fingers and hope that it's this time around for a lot more reasons than my haircut. Okay, we've got lots to get into. Speaking of the former president and the current resident, we will talk about the debate that's coming up. I am as excited as can be about this thing. I do fear that we are in some way setting ourselves up for, I don't want to say disappointment, but maybe that's the right word. And I want to talk about it today on a First Amendment Freestyle Friday. So we're going to do that. We have one or two guests, as a matter of fact, to tell you about. Obviously, Jay St. Clair and Fried Jay at 1:05 this afternoon. We have another guest coming up at about 12:35. More on that guest in just a moment. Before we do that, I remind you that you can participate on the show. You can dial us up on the phones or on the membersnutrition.com super text line at 615-737-9986, 615-737-9986. 9986, and you're encouraged to do so, especially on First Amendment Freestyle Friday. Belle K's behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as possible. We appreciate that. Hello, Belle.
Good as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Harp's behind you there. He's delivering some headlines. He's making some waves back there in the newsroom. Telling me that it was I was talking with Jay Harper a minute ago. He said it was a big weekend in the Harper household.
Why?
You know why?
No.
Tell everybody what you're doing, Harp.
Yeah, it's a big Saturday night in the Harper house as we head to Sam's Club.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, that's
gotta stock up.
That's it, baby.
Stock up on those bulk
things
items
that get you all excited and turned on when you get old.
Look, that sounds like a man that doesn't have a membership to Sam's Club. Am I right, Harper?
I'm telling you, man. It's a man's Disneyland.
Tell you what, you know? The aisles are big and wide. The products are large. You just stack them in the thing. And we were talking here. This is how you know you're old. Jay says to me, and he says, "Man, when the scan and go, it's so easy." And I got excited.
I know, it's revolutionary.
I'm like, yeah, the scan and go's great. It's been around for a while. We used it in Birmingham. We're using it here.
Right.
It's so good. You just scan it. You don't have to go through the
Yeah, I hadn't stood in a freaking line over there for 3 years, man. It's great.
And I don't understand why people do. I don't understand why the line losers still exist. Speaking of losers, Belle K has this look on his face of shame and dismay that he's associated with the show right now. Is that accurate?
No, that's not accurate at all. No, our guest is already here, so I'm patiently waiting to get through the segment so that I can go get them.
Mm-hmm. So you're ruining this segment in anticipation of the next one.
I ruin this segment every day. Shut up.
All I ask is a little attention. If I can't get your attention, how am I going to get anyone else's? 615-737-99. Yeah, 615-737-9986. If you want to pay attention to the show, or if you want to comment on the show, you're welcome to do so. Or if you would just want to talk about Sam's Club and the incredible scan and go technology.
Can we talk about Costco, or is it just Sam's?
I don't know. Yeah, that's what I was saying to Jay. I don't know if Costco does it, but I chided a Costco worker because we got a new Costco over in Mount Juliet and real close to us. And so now I don't know why this, I don't know how this happened, but I'm a member of Sam's Club. I'm a member of BJ's, which is right down the road from me. And I'm a member of Costco. How did I become a member of all three of these things? Why am I doing this? It's like I'm just throwing money out of my truck.
Because you can afford it.
No, I don't. I know I can't. That's the point. Throwing money out of my truck. So I don't know if Costco does it, but if they're not, they're missing out. They need to do it if they don't. Because it's a pretty awesome thing where you just boop, 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 and see ya. You hold your thing up. They can even do it, Bell, just to show you that we live in amazing times. Even if you buy alcohol, Jay, have you bought alcohol from Sam's Club?
The one in Murfreesboro does not carry it. Or, well, they have wine. I mean, they don't have hard liquor.
No, not hard liquor, but like beer or wine.
Yeah, yes, I have. Yeah.
So, yeah, and if you your receipt, like on your phone, Bell, on your app, it comes up with a barcode. When you scan all of your items and you pay via your credit card that you have in your app, the little barcode thing comes up.
QR code.
QR code, thank you, Jay. And then they scan the QR code. If you buy alcohol, your QR code pops up red, and so the person scanning the code knows that they also have to check your ID.
Damn, yeah, it's pretty streamlined.
I mean, it's pretty good. Sorry, I'm waiting for. I think that I would. I don't know. It's easy to say. There will come a time when people will have to make a decision whether or not they're willing to put something on their person, be it, I mean, let's say that it's not a chip in your finger. Let's say that it's just a wristband on your wrist. I would do the wristband technology. So a wristband on your wrist that links to your bank account. I understand all of these things are fraught with peril, and there are some old school people that are still dealing in cash.
You've already got it.
I mean, your phone.
Yeah, it's in your pocket. It's just not on your wrist. What you're describing already exists.
And most of my business transactions happen in a way that I never have to take my wallet out of my pocket. And there are some that are listening to us right now, older listeners right now are just, their mouths are agape at the concept of utilizing that level of technology, but it's already here. Mm-hmm. I remember, I'm old enough to remember when I had callers to my radio show in 03 and 02 and 01 tell me that that debit cards were the work of the devil. So I can hear you whispering. 13 after the hour, we're just getting underway. Lots to get into as we begin a Friday edition of the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let's start here.
So, the title?
Oh, yeah, I do want the title. Episode 596 is entitled.
This is a callback title, and I put a lot of thought into this, and I mean this with all my heart. Matt Murphy, Big Tipper, reminds you, don't be a cheapskate. 25% or go home. Libertarian lunch, noon to 3, Morton's.
Morton's?
Steakhouse.
Oh. Is that where you want to go?
Yeah.
You don't have to tip on alcohol, though. That's my rule. If you are at a higher end place, they mark up alcohol to the point, and I understand why they mark up the alcohol. I get all of that. But if you're at a higher end place and you're spending, let's say there's a group of 4 people and you're spending hundreds of dollars on a meal, I think it's perfectly acceptable to subtract the alcohol out of the total and then tip on that total.
Yeah, just don't be a cheapskate and tip 10% when the guy's busting his ass or she's busting his ass.
I am happy to have that fight with anybody that wants to have that fight. Believe it or not, there were some on the membersnutrition.com super text line at the end of the show yesterday that wanted to fight me because I was chiding this guy for tip. He said that he tipped 10% regardless, like whether it's good. He said if it, and this is where it becomes awkward, like, no matter if it's excellent customer service or crappy, the worst of the worst, he said even if they forget his mashed potatoes. That's what he said. He said if they forget my mashed potatoes, I'm still giving them 10%. Well, why are you rewarding horrible service?
All those people that wanted to fight you, they're wrong.
Yeah, they are wrong. And I had a conversation after the show where somebody asked me a question, and I cannot. The question was, do you remember? Has there been a time that you recall that you didn't tip? And I cannot remember a time that I've not. What it would take for me to not tip would be a level where I would speak to a manager. Like, if it gets to the point where I'm not going to leave a tip for a waiter or a waitress, the service is so bad, I'm going to go talk to a manager and say, you've got a problem here, and here's your problem. And, I'm just encouraging you for the future of your business. You need to deal with this problem.
There was one time I remember not tipping specifically because the service was so horrible, and the bartender, she was so egregious and so argumentative and so rude. And I had taken a band to the hotel bar after we had done a show, and we were there with a bunch of people. And I spent over $1,000. And I literally wrote in the line, no tip. And I handed it to her and I said, this is because you are a B.
Whoa. You say the B?
Yeah.
Did it escalate?
No, we just left. It's like she called me a name back, and I'm like, well, okay, you're
That's
right.
fair.
I changed my mind.
Oh, right. Here's some money now.
Yeah.
It's an evergreen topic, and we can certainly talk about it a little bit later on in the show, maybe in the 2 o'clock hour. We've got other things to do right now, to include a discussion about the presidential debate coming up next week. As I've said to you, I believe that my Biden replacement theory is sound. I believe that the reason that the Democrat operatives that are controlling the show are creating this dynamic by which Joe Biden presents himself on stage this early is simple, that Joe Biden will not be the nominee for president of the United States of America for the Democrat Party if he performs poorly in this next debate. If he can't manage to get sentences out, if he, for whatever reason, is not prepped to the point that he can regurgitate answers memorized by him, if he can't manage to stand on a stage. I do think that there is a fear that we are setting the bar so low that if he walks on stage, doesn't fall, if he doesn't lose his bearings on stage to the point that he's wandering around trying to figure out which way to go. Right. I mean, if he doesn't become that human Roomba that we've talked about from time to time, then that's a victory. And I think the political elites in Washington, D.C., New York City, and beyond, the Democrat operatives in the mainstream media, they know this. And so they are intentionally setting the bar low, too. When you watch the Van Jones of the world on #NeverCNN, and I know you don't watch CNN. I watch CNN so you don't have to. It's a garbage network full of garbage people spewing garbage. What would you expect? It's an absolute dumpster fire of a media organization. But I watch so you don't have to. It's an occupational hazard here on the Matt Murphy Show. But I watch Van Jones, Democrat, media guy, talk to us about, it's do or die for Joe Biden. If he doesn't perform here, the Democrats have a big problem on their hands. When he's saying the same thing that I'm saying, he's trying to lower that bar, lower that bar, lower that bar, lower that level of expectation to the point that merely standing there and completing sentences with a period on the end of them will be enough for the Democrats to declare that their guy is okay. But there's another side to this, too. And I believe that side is real, that the people that are really in control, Joe Biden's making no decisions. Let's make no bones about this. No Democrat really believes that Joe Biden is making decisions. No liberal actually believes that Joe Biden is the true leader of this country right now. There are operatives behind the scenes, whether it's, Susan Rice or Valerie Jarrett or Barack Obama himself, or whoever his chief of staff is now. It used to be Klein. I don't think it's Klein anymore. Anyway, whomever is making the actual decisions on the part of this presidency, they know that if he can't perform in June, he sure as hell's not going to be able to perform in September, and they've got to get something done in order to secure. Their winning is not about Joe Biden. What they want to do to the United States of America, Joe Biden is a useful idiot to them. He is useful, especially in as much as he's lost his mind to the point that he doesn't care about his legacy. Well, I'm going to keep going, Mr. President. I'm going to keep going from now till November and beyond. It's 12:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WT. And I'll tell you the first thing that Donald Trump should do when he stands on stage next Thursday. The first thing that should come out of his mouth. That's next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hello, friends. Matt Murphy here for the Glock Store. I'm a Glock owner. And obviously, if your name is the Glock Store, then you're going to have a lot of Glocks. You're going to have a lot of Glock accessories. You're going to have a lot of Glock performance parts. Now, at the Glock Store, they have other things as well. Obviously, they've got many different styles and types and brand names of handguns. They've got many styles and types and brand names of long guns and accessories and everything else. But if you are in the market for a Glock, might I recommend the 43? I've got that in my home. Might I recommend? I've got a Glock a 20, which I absolutely love. It's little hand cannon. That's a 10 millimeter, and it is fabulous. I recommend you go to the Glock Store for any of your needs, especially when it comes to performance parts. Go to the source, the Glock Store. Performance parts are always installed for free while I wait and while you wait. Of course, they have the incredible, uncomparable shooting rooms. They don't do lanes at the Glock Store. I've never seen this in my life. I'll tell you, it's the first time that I've seen an area that was designed for the space needed to give you a room environment with a trainer so that you can experience training in a real-world way. We don't live in lanes, right? We live in rooms, we live in buildings, and this replicates the real world in a way that you can't get training on a shooting lane. That's what they do at shoot270.com, shoot270.com. Go to glockstore.com for all of the rest of your needs, or better yet, stop by today. They are minutes away from the airport, worth the drive from anywhere. Glock Store on Airlane Drive, just off of Elm Hill Pike and Briley Parkway, glockstore.com. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy for USS. That stands for United Structural Systems, the company that you've trusted in your crawl space for 30 years now, the company that you've trusted for foundation repair, the company that you've trusted for waterproofing repair can now be trusted for mold treatment. Perfect timing with the humidity that goes on during this time of year. Maybe you've noticed some musty smells in your home. That will increase your allergies. It will increase respiratory issues, and it can potentially harm your health. With that in mind, it's time to get with USS. You go to USS and you'll find the RTE solution. That's remove, treat, and encap. That means something. That's just not, something what am I trying to say? That's just not an easy way to sell you on something. It is a real deal thing, because to remove the mold is not the end of the solution. You have to treat and encap that to make sure that the mold never returns. That's what it's all about. And right now, through June 30th, so a few more days, you get a $500 coupon off your purchase of an RTE mold treatment. Actually, it's not even a coupon. It's just it's a discount that they offer you at USS. Call now before humidity continues to cause those mold problems to exacerbate in your home. Breathe easier knowing that your crawl space is taken care of with the RTE treatment. Remove, treat, and encap. They guarantee their best. Call USS 615-488-7855 or online USSTN.com.
The U.S. Supreme Court ruling on a gun ban. We'll also have an update on the new Titan Stadium and its construction progress. We'll have those stories at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Am I saying this name correctly, Belkay? Brylan Hollyhand.
Yes.
Hollyhand?
Yes.
Is coming up. He's standing outside right now. He's on the way. He is a young man that is the editor-in-chief of the Truth Gazette, which is a conservative news service that he established when he was, you know how old he was when he did this thing? It'll make you feel bad about your past.
It already does.
I mean, he's 18, yeah. and he's making things happen, baby. So, yeah, he's on the way. He's got the Brylan Hollyhand show. He's got the Truth Gazette website, and we'll have him on coming up in the next
coming
couple
out,
months.
too.
Yeah, he's got a book out. What is it called? I had it right here. One Generation Away is the name of the book.
I was trying to write full paragraphs at that age, and he's already written a book.
Yeah, no doubt. No question. What am I trying to say? I got caught up in my live spot with USSTN.com.
An acronym.
An acronym is what I was trying. Thank you, Jay. Jay was going to help me.
Yeah,
I could see him.
I know, man. But I didn't want to interrupt your spot.
I know. An acronym is what I was trying to say. That's exactly right. So my apologies for screwing that up. USSTN.com. All right, so here's my thing. We are all very anticipatory of what is going to happen next Thursday. Obviously, I think things have stacked themselves against Trump and in favor of Biden, as you might expect. He's got two friendlies on the panel. CNN is a friendly in and of itself. No audience participation, which can be a good or a bad thing. But I do believe this, that Donald Trump needs to come out with guns blazing, and he needs to set Joe Biden and, more importantly, Dana Bash and Jake Tapper on the defensive. And this is the way you do that. After the pleasantries of the beginning of the conversation, which I don't believe there will be opening statements, just questions. Whatever question you're asked by the commentators, you start off by saying, Jake, thank you. Dana, thank you. President Biden, glad to be here. The last time I was on stage with Joe Biden 4 years ago, one of the last things that Joe Biden said to the American people as I stood on this stage was that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. Joe Biden, at the time that he made that statement, knew that that was a lie because Hunter Biden had told him that that was a lie. He relied on 51 individuals lying in favor of him over me and lying to the American people. And before we begin any of this, so that we may start with a clean slate, I ask that Joe Biden admit that he lied to the American people, or at very least come clean that the laptop that he called Russian disinformation was in fact real, as the FBI has now confirmed through one of the dog and pony show trials that they have put me through. Thank you. Thank you. And just watch. Well, we're not going to talk about that. Just watch, because I promise you what will happen. Joe Biden will fumble and bumble, and one of the moderators, will repair this for him. They will jump in, and they will establish from the jump what this will do. Whether we get an admission of a lie or not, which we all know was a lie, what it at least will do is it will establish that Dana Bash and Jake Tapper, in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the debate, that they're on one guy's side, because they will correct Trump. Am I right? They'll jump in and say, no, you need to answer the question. No, I don't want to answer the question until we deal with this, until we clear the air on this. The last time I was on stage with this guy 4 years ago, I haven't forgotten, and the American people don't need to forget either. He told a lie to every American watching that debate, that the laptop computer that his son was on was Russian disinformation. The same laptop computer that demonstrates the business connections that Joe Biden claims never happened between Joe Biden, Ukraine, and Hunter Biden, between Hunter Biden, Jim Biden, Joe Biden, and China. All of those three are ensconced in these business dealings that he claims never happened, and it is on the laptop computer for everybody to see. So he needs to tell the American people that that laptop was, in fact, his son's. That's what he needs to do. And let's see what happens from there. All right, more on the debate, more of your telephone calls coming up, and a special guest, Brylen Hollihan, coming up in just a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon. It is 12:31. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a lot of sun, 91 degrees, a toasty weekend forecast coming up here in a couple of minutes. Still just a traffic note here. If you're headed on I-24 eastbound just before Old Hickory Boulevard on your way down to Murfreesboro, be prepared to sit in the traffic. There's a wreck that has the right lane blocked, and the backup there is considerable. Here in Nashville, we do have an update on construction of the new Titans Stadium. Metro Sports Authority board members were told by Titans official yesterday that excavation for the new venue to sit by the old one is about halfway done. Concrete's going to be poured before the end of the year. Adolfo Birch, he says the entire project is on track to open by the first quarter of 2027. On the national scene, the Supreme Court upholding a ban on guns for people under domestic violence restraining orders. ABC's Karen Travers, she has the reaction on that from President Biden.
President Biden praised the Supreme Court's ruling, saying it safeguards, quote, critical protections for survivors of domestic violence and their families. The president saying in a statement, quote, no one who has been abused should have to worry about their abuser getting a gun. The president highlighted his work over his career on gun safety, including the Violence Against Women Act and the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. And he once again called on Congress to, quote, take action to stop the epidemic of gun violence.
That is the latest news. Weather is on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. First Amendment Freestyle Friday continues on the Murphy Show. Fry J starts at 1:05 this afternoon. That is our visit with Jay St. Clair, our legal scholar, life consultant, and gambling buddy. He's on at 1:05 this afternoon. Right now, it is our pleasure to welcome into studio, and for those of you watching on Super Talk Television, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, we thank you. You can see sitting in our studios, Brylan Hollyhand, who is an 18-year-old political commentator who has the Truth Gazette online. If you're not following the Truth Gazette, you need to start. He's got a brand new book out called One Generation Away. And if you want to feel like you did not do enough with your life during your teenage years, if you want to feel as if you did not do enough with your life in your 20s, then I am introducing you to Brylan Hollyhand, who will make you feel that way. Thank you, Bel K. I was stretching it to help you out there. Brylan?
Matt, happy
Good
Friday.
afternoon.
Thanks
Happy
for having
Friday
me here
to
in
you.
Nashville. It's an honor to be here.
What brings you to Nash?
So we are doing a 3-day media tour. My book comes out July 9th, One Generation Away, and we wanted to start with Nashville. Y'all are a lot more fun than New York and D.C. media, so we are here, and we have had a great week, and I'm excited to cap it off with the incredible Matt Murphy Show.
Well, you're very kind to say so, and we appreciate you stopping by. Tell folks that aren't familiar with you, aren't familiar with the Truth Gazette,
Sure.
and we'll get into the book in just a moment. I mean, how you're 18.
Yes, sir. Just turned 18 this past weekend.
I'm not going to make the Ben Shapiro comparisons because I'm sure that you hear that all the time.
A little bit.
Because Shapiro started at a young age, and you how in the world did you get involved in politics at such a young age?
I technically did start earlier than Shapiro, but I started at 11.
Have you told him that?
Oh, yes. And so he's come on my show. He's been on the podcast and promoting his book. And so
Good.
now I think it's even for me to come on his show to promote my book.
Sure, I would
that's
agree
just
with
kinda
you.
how the business works.
Yeah, I get it.
But I got interested in politics actually at the age of 10. It was 4th grade. Started watching that 2016 presidential election. I vividly remember having a mock election in my elementary school library. I remember keeping my 4th grade class in from recess to watch President Trump's inauguration. I was like, guys, trust me, it's historic. You want to see this? I was like, there'll be some poems read, some songs sung. Go find some entertainment. But I wanted to hear the speech, and I kept them in. So that's where the interest started. It was July of that year, 2017. I was kind of fed up with the state of the country. And I said, look, if the adults aren't going to do something, I wanted to do something. But what else can an 11-year-old do? You can't run for office. You can't necessarily get a contributor gig on a network, we think. So I started out with an opinion column and started that at the age of 11. I think it was literally, Matt, sent out to 7 people the first time I did it. It was like the aunts, uncles, the people that are forced to read it because it'd be awkward at the Thanksgiving table if they don't. And then it grew from there. And we are here, and we have a book, and I'm now chairing the RNC Youth Advisory Council, and I moved kind of out of a commentary role to an advising role to President Trump and the campaign, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a journey.
Hold on just a second. Hey, Belle, did you hear that? 18-year-old Brylan says that he's an advisor to President Trump. I just want to make you feel a little bit better about yourself and where both of us have gotten in life. Did you grow up in a political household at all? We kind of were previewing this right
Sure.
before we came on air, but your mom and dad not very political?
Not at all. My mom was an educator, dad's in construction, zero political interest at all. Of course, they had conservative Christian values, and I was fortunate enough to grow up in that kind of home, but no political interest until I drug him into it, and here we are.
You're kind of like you're kind of like the reverse of the preacher's daughter syndrome,
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard that one before too, where you're kind of drawn to it because maybe you don't experience it as much. Certainly not in your school system. So, do you feel like the school systems of America, the public education system of America, primarily because you're in it,
Sure.
right?
Oh, yes.
You're ascending to your senior year.
Correct. Yes.
How heavy-handed have they become with regard to politics nowadays?
The indoctrination is up in front. They're not hiding it anymore. I'll say I took an AP US history class this year, and it was very obvious. And it starts very early into the founding of America in the first semester of the class. I mean, they make it blatantly obvious what their goal is, what their agenda is, and that continues through the entire course. I'll say the first section of the book is kind of the context. It's called, how we got to where we are now. A lot of people say we've got a problem, clearly, but before we can get to the third section of the book of where do we go from here, you got to talk about how we got here. And so the first chapter is kind of going after the education system and how in the 60s, 70s, we had, kind of this hippie movement start with liberal professors getting in higher education, and it seeped onto preschool, Matt. And at the time, my publisher was like, you can't start your book by going after educators. Matt, I'm not attacking educators. My mom and both my grandmothers were in education. This is not an anti-education rant. I when I was in kindergarten, I said I was going to be a school teacher, and here I am now doing political commentary. But I love education. I think we need to bring it back to its roots of actually teaching preschoolers their ABCs, their 1, 2, 3s, and not their gender pronouns.
I compare it to a bus driver driving a bus,
Yes.
public education. It is not the fault of the bus driver when the bus breaks down or if the
Correct.
mechanics of the bus aren't operating properly.
Yes.
And if the system itself within public education is inherently broken or rotten from
Absolutely.
the inside, no amount of good educators in the classroom are able to fix that. And most of the educators that I talk to obviously know that.
Absolutely, yes. And it's up to the system. And the system's broken, Matt, and that's something we got to fix pretty fast.
So how long did it take for the Truth Gazette? I mean, I imagine this thing took off. I mean, in part because you're quite unique in terms of presenting good, cogent arguments at your age.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so we started July of 2017. It was about the next year that I first started doing national politics. I started literally interviewing local mayors, people running for, school board. It was very simple starting off. And those positions are very important. And I kind of wish some days that we could go back to talking about those positions.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because COVID taught us how much those positions are important. So we started there. And it was actually Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens. Candace obviously being a friend here in Nashville. And it started with a conversation. And I said, hey guys, you're coming to Tuscaloosa for an event. You're very familiar with the Alabama GOP from your time here in my great state of Alabama.
Yep.
And we were at one of their dinners. They were the two headline speakers. You remember Terry Lathan very well.
I do.
Terry was the chairwoman at the time. And Terry said, if you can get them to come on your podcast, I'll let them join you before they come on stage. So I had this goal of trying to get Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens in a joint interview on my podcast, something that is about impossible today.
How old were you at the time?
12. Just turned 12 a few weeks before that. Yes. And I guess they felt sorry for me. I emailed them a few times and Candace said, well, come on, we'll do it. And they actually ran overtime in their interview. Terry came and pulled him from the room. But that's how it started. And Charlie and Candace both tweeted the interview and it grew from there.
This is the point that I tell you that I've tried to get Candace on my show, especially since the schism that occurred with Daily, and I can't get her to come on my show. So you're doing better than me, Brylan. And
she endorsed the book. Her name's on the very cover of the book. So.
No, I see it. I absolutely love it. So I forgive you for your football fandom because of how right you are and everything else about your life. But you told me when you came in that you live in Tuscaloosa.
I do. Yes.
But can I talk about this?
You can mention it.
Can
There's
I mention
interest.
that you mentioned to me, because I said, well, you've got to be considering colleges right now, and so where are you considering going to college?
Matt, I'll say that I've made the decision to more than likely stay in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
And the cool thing is I got to a college speaking tour this last semester, which means I get to see a lot of different campuses.
Sure.
And my thing with my team is anytime I go to a campus, I want to make sure I get a tour while I'm there. Right. Why not fly? I don't want to fly back out. I want to see it while we're there.
Sure.
And so got some tours. And as you know, Alabama politics also intercedes with Alabama football sometimes.
That's right.
And there's this very big rivalry you might have heard of in the great state of Alabama between Alabama football and Auburn football.
Slightly familiar?
Yeah, slightly. And I will say that Auburn has a great campus, and I've been down, and
It's the most controversial
we'll
thing you're going to say today.
It really is.
That a Tuscaloosa boy born and bred against mom and dad,
Yeah.
against their better judgment, is strongly considering going to Auburn.
I don't think I can go home now. I think they'll block me out of the county when I try to drive home today.
Oh, no. The Auburn fans out there, they absolutely love it. They love when they can steal one from Tuscaloosa, and vice versa, too. The Tuscaloosa folks love to steal one from Auburn. I'll say this. I'm a Georgia boy, so I'm a Georgia Bulldog when it comes to that. But one of the finest traditions in the SEC is the rolling of Toomer's Corner. If you've never seen it, it is something fascinating to see. I mean, everybody's got their own traditions, but it's one of the special ones. Tell me about the book.
Yeah, so One Generation Away. The subtitle is Why Now is the Time to Restore American Freedom. Matt, really, we should have called it Why Yesterday was the Time to Restore American Freedom, because we're kind of behind on the ball. But not to be a doomsday predictor here, but the book's really 7 years of conversations with the American people. It's 7 years of me traveling the country, whether it's young people, old people, Republican, Democrat, black, white, having conversations about where we are as a country. And I've talked to so many people, but more importantly, listened to more of them. And what I've heard time and time again is that our peers don't think that there's hope in a future of this great country. And this book is trying to restore that hope. I constantly tell people after college campus speeches, and they're like, oh, Brian, I don't have hope in America. I say, look, my hope is not in the D.C. bureaucrats, it's in Jesus Christ alone. And that's the message we try to share in this book.
One Generation Away, that's Reagan, right?
Yes.
Reagan quote?
Yes, it is.
And the idea being that if we just allow ourselves to let freedom slip through our fingers, liberty slip through our fingers, then we will see it filter away as it's done in so many other countries around the globe. We managed to hang on to it. I consider when I talk to folks on the radio, I think of one short-term existential threat and one long-term existential threat. And I want to ask you about this. The short-term existential threat right now is, I think, our border security.
I agree.
I think it is the greatest existential threat that we face because it could fundamentally transform if Democrats get their way. I mean, the goal in the short term is clearly to reapportion Congress in a way that suits them.
Absolutely.
And the long-term goal is to absorb these individuals and then demand citizenship, as Joe Biden is declaring, right? He wants to grant amnesty to those who married U.S. citizens, thereby conveying voting rights to them. I mean, they're saying the quiet part out loud, right, in the short term. Do you see it that way too?
100%. What I constantly hear from my peers that we have people coming up after speeches now saying, look, my parents voted for Biden in 2020. If they weren't old enough to vote, or now I voted for Biden in 2020, I can't do that again because of this border crisis. It's becoming that. The economy was what I heard for a while. People were upset with Bidenomics, all that. Now we're hearing border security because they don't want to grow up in an unsafe America. And I think a big pivotal moment, you obviously, a lot of ties to Georgia. I think Laken Riley's brutal murder was a huge, turning point for my generation. That showed that Georgia, a non-border state, had, this illegal come up, not be touched at all, came up the border and brutally murdered an innocent college student. That touched my generation of if it can happen to her in a non-border state, it can happen to anybody in any of the 50 states. And the blood's on Biden's hands. That was very clear at the moment. He obviously, wouldn't even say her name for a while, didn't do anything about it. That really was huge for my generation.
Well, and now you see it in Maryland, you see it in New Jersey, you see it all over the United States of America. It's been happening for a long time, but now those stories are taking on more prominence. The long-term threat, and this is a little more difficult, and I'm wondering if people of your generation are discussing it or if it's on the radar screen. I think the long-term existential threat is our debt and the blow to the federal government. almost $35 trillion. It's unsustainable. It's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. And even Republicans, and I will say this too, and I'll throw it at you, Brylan, and see how you respond. Even President Trump is guilty of it. Now, he will tell us that he's aware of it, and he has said in the past that in the second term, it was one of his priorities to tackle the overspending, and COVID kind of got him off the game as well. But $35 trillion in debt, got to repair it in some form or fashion.
Matt, I'll say this, regardless of the letter behind your name, you should be more than just aware of the national debt crisis. This is something that's absolutely going to affect my generation.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to grow up in a world where we're, $36 trillion in debt. That's not an America I want to grow up in. That's horrible. That needs to be the top priority of everybody. Every member of Congress needs to have the little Thomas Massey clock where they walk around, where it has the ticking debt. I mean, we need to be taking Rand Paul's plan, absolutely, and passing that without even consideration. That should be bipartisan to get, that passed. But we're not seeing it. And we have Republicans and Democrats, both sides of the aisle, saying that they're going to tackle, personal things and not that. And it's pretty sad.
I can do this. I think I can do this in the time that we're talking here. But I can tell you what the national debt was when you were born, and it will absolutely shock you if you. There we go. World debt clock. It's right now our debt is at almost $35 trillion. And I know that in 1984, the debt was less than $1 trillion.
Wow.
So we have grown that much and that quickly. So how do people get a hold of the book, and how do people find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my social media all is at Brown Hollyhan, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Truth Social, TikTok, everywhere. The book is available for signed copies at brylandbook.com. It comes out July 9th, but it's also all major retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere else. And we're excited to get your audience plugged in and involved. Some
of my audience are telling you that the older people have a hard time catching up with you in terms of your speed. I get that too, though. They say you're talking too fast, but you got a lot to get out, right? In a short amount of time. So where else are you going? I mean, are you just branching out all across the? I mean, I know you go everywhere. I look at your website, and I mean, you've met everybody, for goodness sake. So where do you go from here?
So the first week of July, when the book comes out, we'll be in New York for the book release. Second week, obviously, is the convention.
Sure.
And so we hope President Trump will not be on a house arrest, and he'll be there with us. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I will be there.
Right.
And if he needs somebody to stand up for his speech, he knows how to get a hold of me. We'll see how that goes.
You excited about the debate next week?
I'm very excited. I think, thanks for bringing this up, Matt, because I just talked about this. I think the debate is going to be very pivotal. I think it's interesting. I mean, this, political, know so much. June 27th is incredibly early for first debate, and their convention for the DNC is so late. I think they have the opportunity. I mean, and again,
No, they'll do
The
it.
bar is so low for Biden. He just has to be able to stand for 90 minutes and he'll be able to
I've been talking about for weeks the Biden replacement. It's my Biden replacement theory, right? There's only one reason for the powers that be, because Joe Biden's not making any of these decisions.
No.
For the powers that be to allow him to step on a stage in June, that is intentional, and that is a test case. They need to make sure that he can manage himself for 90 minutes. And if he cannot, if there is a gaffe, if there's a major misstep, they'll replace him. And I don't know that it's, but the difficult thing is that they have to replace him with someone not named Kamala Harris.
Which is a problem for them.
Which
they
is a
have the
problem
Kamala problem. Yes,
right.
Absolutely. I think what's interesting, you said, obviously Biden's not running the government. Clearly he's not running the government. He took off work yesterday for 7 days to prep for this. Mm-hmm. Who's running the government? Clearly it's not him, and he hasn't been this whole time, and the secret's now out in the open. So
right. No, well, and even Democrats know it. The liberals know it. They won't say it, but they know it. They talk about what a good man he is and all of that sort of nonsense. But I would agree with you. The early nature of this debate is intentional. They need to make sure that he's their guy long before their convention. And if is there a danger, though, and we were talking about this right before you came on, is there a danger that we're setting the bar too low?
I think so. So yesterday Trump went on the All In podcast. It was an hour and 20 minutes straight, no breaks, completely live. And he did the whole thing, completely normal because he's competent and can do that. And that's the least we need out of a president that can talk for an hour and 20 minutes. But he said in there that he's not underestimating Biden, that obviously, they'll drug him up, they'll get him ready. I think as a party, we have been setting the bar too low. Because right now we're saying if he walks out and stands for 90 minutes, he wins. That's all we're expecting out of him. Mm-hmm. But that's what the bar is going to be. They'll say he wins if he does it. There will be gaffes, a ton. But again, it's CNN.
I know you could. I know you couldn't hear this because you were outside. But I said it last night. I was inspired, and I said the first thing that Trump should do coming out on stage is say thank you, Jake, thank you, Dana, thank you, Joe. For being here. Thank you to the American people. And then immediately pivot to the last time I was standing in a room with Joe Biden, he lied to every American by telling us that the Hunter Biden laptop was not real, that it was Russian disinformation. And in doing so, he destroyed the connection between himself, his brother, his son, Chinese interest, Ukrainian interest. And I call on him before, let's clear the air. Yeah. Let's start on a nice level footing and let Joe Biden apologize for lying to the American people. So I'm going to give him the rest of my time for him to apologize to the American people from the jump, and watch as Jake Tapper, because what you're going to do, Joe will never comment on it. They will jump in, but you establish at very least that it's a 3-on-1 debate for all of the American people. They are aware of what Trump is dealing with at that point moving forward.
Absolutely. I might have to send a little email to HQ after this and pitch.
Come on, baby.
I think it's great.
Well, you got the inside track, so you can do that. Brylan, great to meet you. Good luck on the book tour. What a fabulous job you've done at such an early age. I mean, you're an inspiration to an old man. So we appreciate you being on.
I appreciate you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
There's Brylan Hollyhand. We'll be back in just a moment at Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good afternoon. It is 1 p.m. Well, make that 1 minute past 1 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a whole bunch of sun, 92 degrees. A toasty weekend forecast is on the way. Israel ramping up its offensive in Rafah as tensions flare with Hezbollah on Israel's northern border. ABC's Tom Sufi Burridge is in Tel Aviv.
We are also seeing from the IDF indications that in the last 24 hours they have ramped up their operation in Rafah in southern Gaza, potentially moving into northern and western areas of that city. And that's significant because only this week a top commander of the IDF told me that potentially that operation only has weeks left.
In other news, now for the first time, we're hearing today from the wife of a man who died when they were electrocuted in a hot tub at a Mexican resort last week. Alex Stone has that story.
They were on vacation at the Sonoran Sea Resort in Mexico. Lizette Zambrano and her husband, George Guillen, got into the hot tub and immediately they were electrocuted. Zambrano speaking exclusively to ABC News.
I still can't believe it. A very good man was taken away.
He died. Her heart stopped. Bystanders were shocked as they pulled them from the water. She believes it was faulty wiring and is now suing. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Back here in Nashville on schedule. That's what the Metro officials were told about one of the major projects that's underway on the east bank of the Cumberland River.
A progress report on the new Titans Stadium. Channel 4 says a Titans official, Adolfo Birch, told yesterday's Metro Sports Authority meeting that everything remains on track to open the new stadium in the first quarter of 2027. He said crews are now 50% done with excavation where the new stadium will sit next to the current one. Concrete expected to be poured before the end of the year. They've spent at least $152,520,100 so far. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Obviously, with the heat just spoken about with the weather forecast, you know that you need to keep cool now more than ever. It's going to be hot over the weekend, and obviously the summertime is always hot in Middle Tennessee. What to do if the AC goes out? I know there are a lot of suggestions and a lot of solutions out there for you. Might I recommend what I consider to be the best? Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. Efficient Heating and Cooling tries to help you make the best decision for you with regard to what to do about your AC if it's not operating properly. There will come a time when the AC is kaput and you have to replace, but you don't want to do that too soon. Proper maintenance can extend the life of that unit, says Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling. And Jeff Eddy can help you get through the summertime, get through another season if that's possible. But you can trust him when he tells you that it's time to replace. And when that time comes, they're an elite pro partner with Rheem. They would love to talk with you about potential replacement, or if you need some maintenance on your unit, they're not going to try to upsell you on anything. They just get the job done, and they never charge you overtime when they do it. That's the Jeff Eddy promise. So no matter what time it is, if the unit is causing you issues, you call Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. They come in, and it's the same great invoice no matter what time of day it might be. Never charge you over $125 for a maintenance call, no matter how many units you might have. It's Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. I like to say, if your AC is not ready, call Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. EfficientHVAC.net or call 615-784-4424. What a great young man, Bryland Hollyhand. If you missed some of that interview, great to speak with him. He is the founder, editor-in-chief of the Truth Gazette, chairman of the Youth Advisory Council for the National Committee, the Republican National Committee, and the author of this great new book, One Generation Away. And I so appreciate him being on with us. If you missed any moment of that interview, I invite you to go back to the podcast or go back to Super Talk Television and check it out. Bryland Hollyhand, who is telling me off air, I feel comfortable saying this, and a lot of reaction to his choice of SEC schools. He grew up in Tuscaloosa. He probably had the pick of the litter, and he won that he wanted, and he decided to run on over to Auburn, where he expects to, after his senior year, I have a hard time saying this and not feeling bad about myself, that the young man is yet to experience his senior year in high school, and he's written a book and is the Youth Advisory Council chair for the Republican National Committee. But that is the truth, and good for him. And he's got a bright, bright future ahead of himself. And obviously, he's got a bright future right here and right now. I encourage you to get the book, One Generation Away. He was gracious enough to hand me a copy, and I'll be probably reading that over the weekend, enjoying that. And we'll have him on again from time to time as time allows. 615-737-9986 as we anticipate Friday with Jay St. Clair. Brett is next up on a First Amendment Freestyle Friday in Spring Hill. Hello, Brett.
Hey, I thinking about your thoughts on Trump debating. Your leadoff would have me and you and all the guys high-fiving each other, but the women's don't like all that conflict. And I know a lot of suburban women who got turned off by Trump being so aggressive in the Biden. But
well, obviously, you're speaking some sort of truth because the cell phone communicators are preventing you from being heard. So I'm sorry about that, Brett. But here's the deal. I don't think you have to be angry. I mean, I understand that I come off from a tonal perspective a little angrier than sometimes I want to. And I work on that from time to time. I know. You attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And we do have to consider not just those P1 listeners that listen every single day of the week, Monday through Friday, probably start with Dan Mandis, Chris Hand, Matt Murphy, Brian Wilson, and you're following the news and you're watching other news media outlets, Newsmax, or, probably some of you Fox News. I mean, I still, from time to time, tune over to Fox News, although not nearly as much as I used to. And then I expose myself to some of these liberal networks to make sure that I understand what the enemies are saying. All of that to say, We don't just need to make sure that we are informed. We need to make sure that those who don't pay as much attention are informed. And those folks are sometimes, as Brett noted, not ready for the hardball nature of politics. I don't think you have to be mean-spirited when you say this. And several of you commented, well, he's not going to get an opening statement. So if he doesn't get an opening statement, how's he going to do that? They'll interrupt him. They'll cut his mic. What you do, it's pretty easy. You make them do that. If they're going to cut his mic based on saying something that's uncomfortable for Joe Biden, then that indicates to me that they're on the side of Joe Biden instead of on the side of a robust debate where the candidates get to talk about that which they want to talk about and, sure, answer the question. But if Jake Tapper jumps in on him, sir, you're not answering the question, sir, you're not answering the question, or whatever he might do, that's an indicator that Joe Biden has his thumb on the scale. You trust the intelligence of the American people if you are an honest moderator, that the American people will judge for themselves whether or not it annoys them that he's not answering the question or is answering the question. Does that make sense to everyone? If you're an honest moderator, you ask a question and then you let him answer, and if they pivot, and a lot of times these politicians will do so, if you want to follow up with, well, that's all well and good, but with all due respect, you didn't answer the question, or whatever. To follow up for those who missed it, I believe that on the debate stage next week, that Donald Trump's opening comment should be about, he should reflect on the last time. Standing here 4 years away from our last opportunity to speak on this stage, to speak to the American people. The last time that I was in a room with Joe Biden, the last time that we spoke together, was the last time that we debated. And the last time that we debated, Joe Biden lied to the American people. And I believe that we need to, in an effort to move forward, we need to start with a clean slate. And in order to do that, I call on Joe Biden to apologize for lying to the American people. He claimed that the laptop computer found in New Jersey in a computer repair store was not that of his sons. He claimed it was Russian disinformation. We now know that's not true, that it was Hunter Biden's. The FBI has confirmed it. The FBI has confirmed that all the information on there is real, to include the intimate business dealings that Hunter, Jim, and Joe were all involved with. Just go there, man. Just go there. See what happens. Speaking of going there, I'm looking online, too, and I see it's time to go here. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, at 14 after the hour of 1 o'clock, it's time for Friday. Heck yeah, it is. What y'all talking about? Every week we do it. We break down everything that you need to know about what's going on in lawfare against Donald Trump and otherwise with our good friend. He is a Tennessee man through and through. He was born and raised here. Jay St. Clair is a legal mind par excellence. He is my life consultant and my gambling buddy, an occasional golfing buddy, and we welcome him to the radio show this afternoon. Jay, as I like to do, I have a question for you to start off.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Jay?
If I were any better, I mean, just a little bit better, I would be Coach Tony Vitello. No, or this was a hard choice, or Melinda Burke.
Melinda Burke.
Yeah, one of the players' moms.
Oh, okay.
And she is hilarious. You know, they got this thing where they got the daddy hats, which I don't really like. It's kind of showing out. You know, when you hit a home run, they wear a daddy hat. Uh-huh. Well, she's got a mommy hat. So whenever he hits a home run, she puts on her mommy's hat.
The weekend, by the way, I should note, Jay and I have been having these weekly visits for, probably going on 2 decades now.
Yeah, close to 20 years.
It's right. Almost 20 years that we've spent our Fridays together. And some of the weakest sauce St. Clair has ever brought to the table is I ask him for predictions, and he tells me that Tennessee's going to hit a home run. I mean, Jack.
Did you see, Matt? They said at all time NCAA, this has never happened in the history of college baseball. They have 5 players on that team that have hit 20 home runs.
That's pretty impressive.
That's impressive. It's fun.
Well, and they're taking on what, A&M? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, and Chuck's going nuts. My son's going nuts. You know, he went to a Tennessee baseball camp at Knoxville when he was 11 years old. That's how long he's been following Tennessee baseball.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. What, first game tomorrow? Is that right?
Yep, tomorrow evening. Yeah, it's a 2 out of 3 with Texas A&M. And, so Saturday and Sunday, and then if there need be, the rubber game will be Monday evening.
Look, I'm rooting for Rocky Top, Jay. I'm a volunteer. When it comes to that matchup, I'm a volunteer man through and through. I've told all of the volunteer folks around the radio station, anybody that'll listen to me in Nashville, Tennessee, that I want the Tennessee Volunteers to win this championship because they need a championship somewhere because they sure as hell not going to win one in football.
I figured there was going to be something. But I got to be honest with you, it was hard not to say Bryson DeChambeau. Did you say he apparently was in Nashville yesterday?
No, he's at the Live Golf Tournament is in Nashville this weekend.
Okay, so that's why he's there. So he's walking around. It looked like Lower Broad. He's just carrying his U.S. Open trophy around with him.
Look, that guy made it. There was a minute. I can't not like him. And there was a minute where some folks were saying, no, he's not. He's a weirdo, and he's, the mad scientist, and he's unlikable. And maybe he was early on, but he has gotten rid of all of that. He is a man of the people. And let me tell you, Jay, beyond his ability on a golf course, which is, obviously pretty good, he has learned. It goes back to, I'll tell you this. You might not remember this, but I sure do. One of my favorite movies is The Right Stuff. You remember The Right Stuff?
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah.
NASA. Oh, yeah. NASA astronauts. And it was about the Mercury program and the space race, right at the beginning of the space race. And there's a time where the astronauts are kind of trying to get back a little bit of their power from the engineers, a lot of these German engineers. And he said, and one of the astronauts, I think it was, I forget who it was, but he said, "Do you know what makes this bird go up?" And the German engineers said, "Well, I mean, the analysis of propulsion alone would take it." And he goes, No. Funding makes this bird go up. No Bucks and no Buck Rogers. And he said, if you don't want us to go out and talk to these people, he's pointing to the press. He said, if you don't want us to go out and tell the press what you're doing, we'll get our hatch with explosive bolts or whatever they were looking for. The point is this, that it's all about the people and the money. And Bryson DeChambeau has learned that it's about the people.
Yeah.
And I think what he is doing is going to change the nature of golf. And here's what I mean. That he's broken down this nonsense. And I don't blame Tiger Woods for this, but I think of Tiger Woods where he would never look at people when he was playing.
Right.
He, back in his prime, he was so focused and zoned in that he wouldn't acknowledge the fans. He wouldn't acknowledge the crowds. Bryson's like the opposite of that.
Well, he's Arnold Palmer.
Oh, that's good. Yes, that's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Well, groundskeeper's son.
Well, I don't feel a bit bad for Rory McIlroy. I just don't. It's our trophy. We need to keep it here.
Well, look, they both played the same golf course, and the better man won.
Well, there you go.
Kind of like last weekend.
You sent me an email that told me you were training up today. Is that what you said?
Absolutely. I've been out there twice this week. Forget the laws, man. I mean, of course, this means war.
Well, I didn't bring it up, and you brought it up, and maybe we'll let the entire audience in on what we're talking about right after this. We've got to take a quick break, and we'll talk a little law. I'll ask Jay in a moment. There was a Supreme Court decision that came down today, and I'll give Jay dealer's choice as to which one he wants to talk about. I know I want to talk about the Second Amendment opinion, which I think was very fairly and rightly decided. It was an 8-1 decision with only Clarence Thomas dissenting. And Clarence Thomas is probably the most fierce defender of the Second Amendment currently on the court. We'll talk about that. Jay is reflecting on the fact that, we had a golf game. And one, somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. I'm not saying which is which, but one of us has not played since that golf game, and the other has practiced twice. It's 21 after the hour on Super Talk.
The U.S. Supreme Court ruling on a gun ban today and a Toyota SUV recall. We'll tell you about all that coming up at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mr. Harper. It's 25 minutes after the hour. Our good friend, legal correspondent, life consultant, gambling buddy Jay St. Clair is on the line with us. If you have any political, not political. If you have any political questions, I'll answer those. If you have any legal questions, is what I meant to say. Get them in here at 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN, via the membersnutrition.com super text line. Best way to do it. You can also call, and we'll get those questions answered as time allows. Kathy writes in and says, Matt, would you please please tell Jay? Jay, are you listening?
Yes, sir.
You here? Matt, will you please tell Jay? And Kathy's one of my favorite listeners. She is loyal as the day is long, Jay. She's here every day. She responds. She talks to us on the membersnutrition.com super text line. And she wants you to know that her Aggies are going to win. So there you go. So, well.
Does she talk trash a lot or just about baseball?
I think she just means in life in general that the Aggies are going to win. Because I don't. I'll say this. I have no idea who's going to win and who's going to lose. But I know this. If the Aggies are going to win, they better be ready to score some runs. Because the Volunteers are going to score some runs.
It's just great.
Jay, dealer's choice on these Supreme Court rulings. I'm interested in that Second Amendment deal, but anything catch your fancy?
Absolutely. Yep. No, it's great.
So 8-1, it seems like, for me, look, I understand that we have Second Amendment absolutists, and, maybe we call Justice Thomas a Supreme Court Second Amendment absolutist. But I understand that some folks are going to get heartburn over this, but the courts have consistently stated, and this kind of confirms it, that there are certain things that you can do to present a real and present danger to the public that gives the society that you live in the ability to take away your guns for a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, so let's talk about this absolutist thing. The English language, you and I and Richard, also called His Honor,
Judge,
we're talking about this. I mean, the English language is very imprecise, man. I mean, linguists will tell you that, not lawyer people. I mean, people that study languages. It's a pretty imprecise language. The well-regulated militia being important in the country, the right to keep and bear arms, the right, that's the key word, shall not be infringed. So some people read that and say, well, there is an absolute right to have arms. That's not what that means. I mean, I suppose that's one way to read it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. No law. Hey, Bill, how many laws do you think Congress has passed that limits or prohibits certain types of speech?
More than they should have.
That's a great answer. And the answer is there are many such laws, and they are constitutional. And I tell my students this in my law school class. So no, the word no in the First Amendment does not mean no. That's why people hate lawyers. And in the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms does not mean an absolute right. When those words were written, the people who wrote it understood that there were some limitations on the right to keep and bear arms. And so the right they were talking about was not an absolute right. It was the right that kind of existed at common law. And so that's all the kind of the lawyer part of it. So let's talk about the real world. Somebody commits a mass murder. Well, let's say the shooter out in Las Vegas. And when he killed like 60 or 70 people with a gun. And let's say he serves his prison sentence and is released. Should he be allowed to own a gun? That's my first question.
Yeah, most people would answer that question. Of course not.
Yeah, most people are going to say no, right? But for obvious reasons. Should anybody have a right to carry a machine gun on an airplane?
And most people would say, no, it's probably a bad idea.
Exactly. And so the right is not absolute. The question then is, it's a line drawing question, and we get it in law all the time. Where are we going to draw the line?
Well, I ask it this way too, Jay, just to add to your examples, which are really good ones. Mine has always been, well, why don't we let felons in prison have guns? Why don't if the language is that your right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, it doesn't say unless you go to prison.
Right.
So why don't we let them? And people say, oh, well, that's silly, Matt. I said, well, I mean, we got to start somewhere. I mean,
no, it is silly. We all agree that's silly. So no does not mean no.
That's right.
Right does not mean absolute right. And so then it's a line drawing question, right? So here this guy he's beating up the mother of his child. And then they're in a car. And then he gets out of the car to go to the trunk to get his gun. And then he shoots. He doesn't hit her. She gets away. And then he calls her later and says, if you report this to the police, I will hunt you down and shoot you. That's what this case is about, man.
Wow.
And for her credit, she goes to court. She gets a restraining order.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he had the right to show up and argue his case and defend himself, and he chose not to. And so there was a hearing. And the judge said, this guy there is reason to believe he is going to hurt this woman. And so he's going to stay 500 feet away and, all the kind of typical restraining order stuff. And for 2 years, he suspended his license to have a gun.
All right, hold it right there because I think it's a good place to put a pause on the subject. And we'll come back with Jay St. Clair in just a moment and finish this up. A lot of reaction to this. A lot of folks are upset. No means no, they say. No means no. We'll continue the conversation right after this. Right after Jay Harper in the news. It's 1:31. 1:32, actually, on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yes, it is 1:32. Good afternoon. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got plenty of sun, 92 degrees. If you like the sunshine, you're going to love the weekend. We'll have a full forecast in a couple of minutes. As Matt and Jay St. Clair have been discussing, the Supreme Court in an 8-1 decision upholding a ban on guns for people under domestic violence restraining orders. Here's Gary Roush from Maryland. He was outside the Supreme Court today.
I was pleasantly surprised. Given the way the court's been going, I assume they were going to say, sure, insane people can have guns. But luckily, some reason prevailed.
Toyota SUV owners take note. Toyota recalling 145,000 SUVs because of a possible airbag problem. Toyota said the curtain shield airbag on the driver's side of some 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander and Lexus TX vehicles may not deploy as intended during crashes if the driver's window is rolled down. Interesting. The automaker is developing a remedy and said customers will be notified about all this by sometime in August. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hello, friends. Matt Murphy for U.S. Pest. J.K., Erica, and the rest of the team at U.S. Pest, they say Happy Independence Day a little bit earlier than usual because they love the United States of America and they demonstrate it on a regular basis. And they love killing commie pests. Full-service pest control at U.S. Pest involves spiders and stink bugs and ants and all of those things that are trying to invade your property and get inside of your home. And you want to prevent that from happening. I call them communist or socialist because that's what they want to do. They want to turn your property into their property. They want to turn your stuff into their stuff, and they will if you let them. U.S. Pest is the defense that you need on your property and in your home. Preventative and corrective services and termite protection can protect your home. 100% money-back guarantee. Every home in Tennessee is threatened by termites. You need to get some protection through U.S. Pest. Crawl space services are offered to help you get those creepy crawlies and those bugs that come in from beneath out of the way. And then full-service pest control is available at U.S. Pest as well. Call for a free inspection today at uspest.com. That's uspest.com. Go 590-1260. That's 615-590-1260 for U.S. Pest. I love the membersnutrition.com super text line. I love all of you guys that listen on a regular basis, on a daily basis. Some of you, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's the Matt Murphy Show. Thank you for being here. Beautiful day, hot day, 140 on this First Amendment Freestyle Friday. We're also in the midst of Friday. I love it when I get super text like this. 1394 writes in and says, this show, and this was at 132, this show just lost this listener forever. And that's it. And my response was, how? You gotta give me more than that. Or I guess you don't have to give me more than that. It is a free country, sir. And I certainly hope that we don't lose any listeners. But if it was over the conversation regarding guns and the Second Amendment, well, I mean, I guess the Supreme Court lost you too. I don't know. Jay was walking through some of this with us with regard to guns and the specific nature of the case involving the 8-1 decision earlier today on the part of the Supreme Court. I've had several questions. I don't want to get into the way. Did we have, that you gave us the facts of the case, which are just as dramatic as they come, Jay. So the conclusion of the court was that there are circumstances by which an individual, and am I saying this right? And I'm synopsizing it. But if an individual demonstrates a real and present threat to the community, and specifically in this case, in a domestic violence situation, that they can have their Second Amendment rights temporarily taken away from them.
Yeah, you said it exactly right, and temporarily is a key word. And here it was just a 2-year ban. From the guy that just said that if his the mother of his child did something, he was going to shoot her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I understand that people are very sensitive for their Second Amendment rights and trying to protect those Second Amendment rights. And I don't know how you feel about it, Jay. Maybe it's a little more in my arena and not yours. But there is a process. I think every state has a process by which if you're convicted of a felony that you can apply or appeal. Maybe every state does, and I don't know. I haven't looked. But a lot of states have this ability where you can apply to have a restoration of your Second Amendment rights.
That's right. And you're right. It is a state-by-state thing. It's not easy. It's probably, easier in some states than others. But, yes, that's exactly right. And, you got to ask the question, well, if somebody was convicted of a felony that was not violent in any way, then, well, why should they lose their Second Amendment rights? I think the court would look at that one very closely. Because the way this analysis goes, man, and which I love, right? But you've been talking about activist judges, whereas people just make up the law. Well, here's what they've decided about the Second Amendment in other parts of the Constitution as well. They're going to interpret it in the way that the people that wrote it meant it. This originalism idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they do is they go back to the 1700s and look at, well, were there any laws in place back then that said that violent people can't have weapons? And it turns out there were a lot of such laws. And so they said, well, then that defines the words "the right."
Mm-hmm.
It was an absolute right. And, the right, you don't have that right if you're a violent person.
Well, and the reason, and there's a lot of reaction to your conversation, a lot of reaction to my example of the prison issue or one of your examples. And I would say the reason that I use the extreme example of should prisoners have guns? Why don't we allow prisoners to have guns? And people say, well, of course we're not going to allow that. They violated the law, and there comes a point when criminals forfeit their rights by violating the rights of others. And my premise is based on, well, okay, then. We all agree that we're drawing a line somewhere.
Exactly. Now we've gone from zero to something.
Right.
That's the biggest step to take. Once we can all agree that, okay, you're right. There are some circumstances where some person can lose his right to own a gun. Well, that's the biggest step to take. What's the little story where the guy runs into a lady at the bar and says, would you sleep with me for $1 million?
Oh, no.
I suppose I would. And he says, well, would you sleep with me for $100? Sir, what kind of woman do you think I am? Well, man, we've established that. We're just haggling over
Now
price.
we're just haggling on price. That's great. Well, that's right. And if you come at it from that, right, where you're not going to draw that hard line, and maybe some do, I don't know, well, then you recognize that it's just a matter of degrees. And this person that seems way, way over there in their perspective on gun rights in America, let's get them closer. Let's see how close we can get before we dig our heels in and say no more.
Right.
And I think that's what America is all about. And I know it doesn't do us very much good on talk radio sometimes to be that way, but I believe in that we can draw in the political left far more doing it that way than just digging our heels in and deciding that we can't talk to them anymore about these things.
Right. No, I'm with you 100%.
Jay, a serious question coming in from Jason, and that's not like him on these serious questions. He's one of our favorite super texters, but he does have a serious question, and it leads me to my next question of you. Okay. Have you looked at this Louisiana law that was signed by the governor and regarding the 10 Commandments at all?
Yeah.
And what do you think is going to happen there? Because I have a hard time believing the Supreme Court's not going to frown on this, but maybe they won't. Who knows?
Well, we have a lot of experience with that in Alabama. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court put up a 10 Commandments monument in the judicial building in Alabama. A federal judge said that was unconstitutional. He ignored that order.
Yep.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Roy Moore. And, I have not looked at the details. The details really matter. Because if they handled it in a really clever way, it has to be almost like a little subterfuge, Matt, where they're presenting it as historical and not religious, and they put it alongside a lot of other things. They might squeak by, but if you just posted the 10 Commandments up in any kind of public building, the federal courts are going to say that you can't do that. That violates the First Amendment. You're trying to establish a religion, and the First Amendment prohibits the government from establishing a religion. It's kind of like prayer in schools, Dale, right? I mean, that's been an ongoing debate for a long time. Well, look, they can do whatever they want to, Bill, as long as they give math tests in school. There's going to be prayer in school.
I've seen it. I've done it. Been there, done that. Well, and
but the issue is it being governed or being led by the school, though, right?
That's right.
Well, that's right.
Prayer in school.
And my thing, I stand by what I said in 2003 when the Roy Moore Alabama Judicial Building situation was ongoing. That I find it far more important that young people are walking into schools with the 10 Commandments in their heart than if there is a poster with the 10 Commandments on the wall. And you don't get 10 Commandments in your heart through state-run education. You get that starting in the home. And we need more of that. And that's up to us, not up to them. All right. Jay, can I file? These are my favorite questions that we get on a weekly basis. So I'm going to rapid fire them. Jason from Clarksville writes, can I file a lawsuit against Exxon for causing the climate crisis? I'm hot in places that I shouldn't be.
Hey, Bell, why don't you take that one? Tell him what 2 things you need to file a lawsuit.
He needs to get himself a crayon and then send me $400.
You know, Bell, you got the makings of a good lawyer in you.
Just needs to cut that hair. Number 2, please ask Jay, can I sue an administrator from Facebook for slander or libel? You want to give that one to Bell too, Jay?
Yeah. Hey, Bell, let's see if you go 2 for 2.
Yeah, Bell, what do you got?
Crayon, $400.
There you go. And this one is a more serious nature, and I want to say a thank you on behalf of this listener, because the listener has written us back. Hold on, dadgummit, I lost it, Bell. Get it back up to the top of the page if you can, because I lost that comment. There's just been too many coming in. See if you can't find it and get it back up to the top of the page.
Which one was it?
It was the gentleman that had lost his son that had written us. You know, the one that you pointed out to me? In the meantime, do you, Jay, obviously this thing, the Louisiana court case, it's going to become a court case, right? I mean, obviously, these various organizations, Freedom from Religion and all that, they've already indicated that they will file. Do you think, I mean, this seems like the type of case the Supreme Court might want to revisit it. I think they addressed it in 1980, if I'm not mistaken. Would it surprise you if would anything surprise you in this case in terms of their ability to take it up?
You know, I'm going to withhold judgment on that until I know the very specific facts, because in these cases, the very specific facts matter. What kind of facts am I talking about? What exactly is on the monument, if that's what it is? Is it standing alone, or is it around other historical documents?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, let's say they have the 10 Commandments, they have the Bill of Rights, they have the Magna Carta, they have the Constitution. Well, that's different than if there's just a monument with the 10 Commandments. Oh, shoot. Who was the gunner that played Moses in that movie?
Charlton Heston, I think you're.
If it's just the 10 Commandments and Charlton Heston holding them in each arm, that great scene, then that probably doesn't fly. But if you put it along with a lot, and some of the states are clever, and they've done this. They say, well, no, this is just a historical exhibition about various laws. And, you know, here's the Magna Carta, and here's the Bill of Rights, and here's the 10 Commandments, and here's something else. And it's being presented not as a religious document, but as a historical document. Then, we'll see. I mean, the law in this area is so crazy, right? You can't post 10 Commandments, but hey, Bill, do you know what Congress does when they open up their session in the United States Congress?
Don't they have a prayer?
Yep.
They have a prayer.
They pray. That's right. All right.
Isn't there somebody who's specifically dedicated to doing that prayer each day?
No, it's a different person each day.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, it's a shared responsibility.
Different religions, right?
All right, a couple more, and then we'll get to this other comment. Someone by the name of Pamela wants to know if she can sue Bell for pretending to be a lawyer.
$400 in a crayon.
Jay Rocco writes in and says, if you were on death row, and I don't know what you did to get on death row, but I hope it was good. If you were on death row, what would your final meal be? I think we finally stumped St. Clair.
Final. That's a really good. Yeah.
I thought this was a no-brainer, but I guess you got off steak night. So
no, I was just about to say, it would have been easy 10 years ago, but taste changes. It would be probably a Red Lobster seafood.
Oh, jeez.
Sampler.
You're just trying to trigger me.
Sampler. No, because I would want some crab meat. I love Alaskan key crab meat. Love crab meat.
Well, let's go to Red Lobster by all means.
Well, we better hurry up. There's not going to be many of them left. And
let's end it with this, Jay. You had we had a correspondence with a gentleman, and I'll read you this initial correspondence, and I'll read you the follow-up. Said, my son passed away unexpectedly May 18th. Hospital sent him home in March after a week's stay with blood sugar over 1,100. And I read you the entirety of this passage a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, maybe last week. And he has written back and said, Matt, I'm the father that texted you and Jay last Friday, Jay, about my son's passing. I got in touch with the attorney Mr. Jay hooked me up with, got the ball rolling. It was too far for him, but he has now told me what to do. Just wanted to thank you and Jay so much. He was only 30 years old, just taking it day by day now and waiting on the autopsy. Thank you both again. I wanted to relate that to you, Jay.
No, I appreciate that. He seemed like a really terrific guy. And I put him in touch with frankly, the best trial lawyer in Alabama. And I figured that David, his name, might not handle the case in Tennessee, but he would know the best person to send it to. He's like the top of the top, Matt. It's, kind of like, well, the only team to ever have 5 guys hit 20 home runs.
That's a good
that level of exclusivity.
All comes full circle, my friend. I bet they'll go down to Broadway, down to Lower Broad if they win the championship, too, like Bryson DeChambeau did. Jay, have a great weekend. I hope you hit them straight and not in the woods.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
We'll talk to you again soon. There's Jay St. Clair, our good visit with him on these Fridays. Fry Jays, we call them. It's 1:55 on Super Talk. Okay, friends, so you are thinking of cooking something delicious this weekend maybe for the family. Have you thought about going to Savory Spice for all of your spice needs? I mean, it's where the professionals go, friends, and there's a reason that they go there. Holly and David, my goodness gracious, they have a great shop with welcoming people, knowledgeable about the spices that they sell, and they have everything for you. Something for someone and something for every taste in your family. They've got international spices. They've obviously got the stuff that you can restock your shelves. They have the best of the best at Savory Spice. They've got gift-giving ideas, great grilling tips and grilling combinations for you to get on the grill this summertime. And, of course, they've got the Spice and Easy, which makes cooking up something in the evening a jiffy quick exercise. As a matter of fact, they've got 45-minute meals, 25-minute meals, and the spices are already pre-made for you. So it is a no-brainer when you do the Spice and Easy route. Savory Spice, once again, 2 locations, one on Charlotte Avenue. That's in L&L Market. The other is in Franklin, just off the square next to Gray's Pharmacy. Stop by and tell them that Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only, the delicious Savory Spice.
It is 2:01, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. This is WTN, Nashville, Tennessee. Well, we've got quite a bit of sunshine, as you can imagine. We've got 93 degrees out there, and we'll get you that full weekend forecast. It's hot. That's coming up here shortly. The Supreme Court, in an 8-1 decision upholding a ban on guns for people under domestic violence restraining orders. This is the court's first Second Amendment case since they expanded gun rights back in 2022. The opinion, authored by Chief Justice John Roberts, with Justice Clarence Thomas dissenting. ABC News legal contributor Kim Whaley, she weighs in on the decision.
In Justice Thomas's defense, I think he is saying, listen, if we're going to be originalists and go back to our time machine, we should be consistent about it. And I think the majority, and there's other opinions, Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Barrett all wrote separately, they're saying, no, we do actually have to exercise some judgment, even as conservatives. And I think the question moving forward is, how far then is the space between progressives and conservatives when judges start judging? Law is very hard and complicated.
The federal government okays more e-cigarettes. Here's Derek Dennis.
The FDA has authorized the marketing of 4 versions of the Enjoy brand menthol-flavored e-cigarettes. And announcing the authorization, the FDA said the benefits to adult smokers from completely switching to a less harmful product was sufficient to outweigh the risks to youth. The FDA says e-cigs are not considered safe, but they are believed to be safer than traditional tobacco products. So far, the FDA has authorized 27 tobacco and menthol-flavored e-cigarette products and devices.
Back here in Nashville, an update on construction of that new Titans Stadium. Metro Sports Authority board members were told by a Titans official yesterday that excavation for the new venture, the one's going to just be sitting right there by the old stadium, is halfway complete. Concrete's going to be poured before the end of the year. Titans official Adolfo Birch says that whole project is on track to be open by the first quarter of 2027. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
All right, folks, if you're looking for a gun safe, if you're looking for a corporate safe, if you're looking for a jewelry safe, if you're looking for a safe to protect your paperwork, your valuables in your home, if you're looking for a vault door, if you're looking for a tornado shelter, if you're looking for a biometric, you look in one stop. One stop at Nashville Safe House. Mark at Nashville Safe House, it's what they do. They protect the things that matter to you, whether it's your valuables, maybe it's your business concerns, perhaps it's paperwork, and perhaps it's your guns, those things that protect your family and your property. You can all find that at Nashville Safe House. They have the best selection in the United States of America. I'll put them against anybody else in the United States. Over 200 safes right there in the showroom, and then they have over 400 oftentimes in their warehouse. They're right across the street from City Cemetery on 4th Avenue South. I would encourage you to get down there and see for yourself, or better yet, go online to NashvilleSafeHouse.com. Mark and his team remind you that gun safes remain sales tax free at Nashville Safe House, and they have professional people delivering their safe, not some third party, not some unknown quantity, not somebody that you wouldn't want in your home. They employ the people that come into your home to deliver your safe. NashvilleSafeHouse.com. That's NashvilleSafeHouse.com. You ever feel something cold and think it's wet? Ever happen to you? Where you feel something that's really cold and you think, "Ooh, is that wet?" I just did that on my leg. Hey, friends, it's the final hour of the week for the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Pleased you've decided to join us. We got Jay Harper back in the newsroom gathering headlines. Bell K's behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. And then there's me, your humble correspondent and host, Matt Murphy, until 3 o'clock, where we'll hand off to Brian Wilson and The Drive and call it a weekend. We've got less than a week before the big debate coming up next Thursday. We've got the big event. I haven't talked about it nearly enough. Hop Springs is the location. Murfreesboro. Brian Wilson doing his entire show out there from 3 until 7 o'clock. I'll leave here at 3 o'clock and go directly there to Hop Springs to get ready for and anticipate the big debate happening next Thursday. We want you to be there. If you've never been to Hop Springs, I had a great experience at Hop Springs at a concert, Driving and Crying concert, a couple of weeks ago. We went out there and saw the game. I love it when this happens, by the way. And it'll happen with far more frequency this time around, but I'm just standing around waiting for a T-shirt or a cold beer, and I got a tap on the shoulder. "Are you Matt Murphy?" Why, it depends on who's asking. That's normally my response to that question. Are you Matt Murphy? It depends on who's asking. Are you friend or foe? Well, this was a friend, and she was a loyal listener to the show, and they were out, she and her husband, watching the Driving and Crying show at Hop Springs. So, Hop Springs, Murfreesboro, it's in Hans' backyard, Ken Weaver's backyard. We might actually get Ken Weaver out to one of these events. You never know. But we'll be out, and we'd love to see you. Dan Mandis, Matt Murphy, Chris Hand, Brian Wilson, and you. We'll have commentary between 7 and 8, and the debate kicks off at 8 o'clock Central Time. We will, by the way, just from a programming perspective, just to let you know, we are not airing the debate because we are not allowed to. CNN has all of these rules and considerations, and they're not allowing or this, that, and the other thing. So we're not airing the 90-minute presentation on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Obviously, we'll be watching together at Hop Springs, and we invite you to come out. We'll yell, we'll cheer, we'll boo, we'll jeer. It will be fun.
The next one's on ABC, though, so I think that one will be played in its entirety.
Here on Super Talk?
Correct.
Yeah, certainly. Are you making your plans to head on out to Hop Springs right now, Bell?
No, actually, I'm trying to math right now, and it's very, very difficult for me.
Yeah,
because I am not good at math.
By the way, what a pro Jay Harper is.
Yes, very much so.
Because you were mathing, and there was some failures on our side of the glass, and I'll accept my responsibility. You accept your responsibility, and Harper cleaned it all up.
Well, the truth of the matter is it's actually all on my shoulders because I was the one who didn't do what he was supposed to do. And Jay jumped in there, and
he's such a pro.
Yeah,
such a pro.
Made it sound good anyway.
That's right. Well, and you can hear in his voice. I can hear it in his voice. Maybe the casual listener could not, but I heard Jay say, Well, that's the News Tease theme, and that's not the start of the news theme, but I'm going to go ahead and start the news because it's 2:01.
I'm looking at the time. I'm like, well.
From where I was sitting, it sounded more like, oh, this guy.
Good for you, Hartford.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm looking at the time there. I tell you what, I live in Murfreesboro, and I'm thinking I might be making that.
Come on, man.
That party. But, if Bell doesn't show up, I think after the last few minutes, he at least owes me a beer, wouldn't you think?
I would think so, yes, Jay. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Bell?
Our new boss, Paul, we discussed it, and he forbade me from showing up.
Yeah.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't believe you, Bell. I think you're a liar. The truth ain't in you.
Yeah. You can ask Paul.
I will ask by the way, I've thought of a new nickname for Paul. And I want to see what you guys think about it.
You know what? He just got the job. I'm not part of this at all until I know him a little better.
I kind of like the idea of calling him, remember Deal or No Deal?
With Howie Mandel, yeah.
Right, and there was the banker.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should go the banker because that's a little odd. But you never saw him. He was just a shadowy figure that you never saw.
Right.
And Paul's kind of that way.
Yeah.
Dan was right there out in front, and he still is on Nashville's Morning News, right there out in front. But Paul is kind of behind the shadow, lurking behind the shadow. I think we should refer to Paul forevermore as
the shadow?
The suit.
The suit, okay.
What do you think?
Even though he's rarely in one?
That's the irony. That's kind of the inside. Yeah. That's the inside twist. But that's what he is, right? He's the suit. When the suit comes down the hall, there's trouble following. You know that. So we'll see. We'll just let it lay there and see if something sticks on it. Speaking of the first presidential debate, no, there's never been one sooner. The first debate was supposed to take place September 16th in Texas, based on the schedule that the Commission on Presidential Debates put forth, but they are not in control any longer. Instead, the presidential cycle indicates that we get this. One wonders why the Democrats decided on this. I have my own theory, and I presented my own theory to you, that I believe that this is more about Joe Biden than it is Donald Trump. They recognize that if they can't get Joe in June to stand for 90 minutes, and it will be a standing debate. I know some of you have suggested it would not be. The standing rule is there. They're going to have podiums. They're not sitting down. Some are saying, I thought they were sitting down. No, I think they're standing up, as far as I understand. No studio audience. Microphones muted when the other candidate is talking. No props, no pre-written notes. 2 commercial breaks. No interaction with campaign staff during those commercial breaks, and some other guidelines from CNN. So I play a little poker every now and again. And I'm happy to join your game if you'll have me. Just let me know when and where, how much I need to bring, what's my stake, and I'll take home the profits. But when you play poker and you're in a big hand and you're wondering whether you should bet, call, or fold, you need to understand your outcomes. And what are the possible outcomes in any given hand? The possibility is that the other guy's bluffing, or that he has something. And if he's bluffing, obviously, and you've got something, you call his bluff. You could be bluffing, and you're trying to convince him that you've got a hand. Or you could have a hand and he doesn't. You have him beat, or he has you beat. All of these are possible outcomes depending on what your whole cards are and what you're looking at, what you're looking at on the table. So I did this last night. What are in addition to what I think Trump should lead with in the debate, which I think he should lead with reflect. It is a simple thing to say. Yeah, whatever the first question might be, because they don't get opening statements. I'm going to reflect on that in just a minute, Jake, because it's a very important question. But, it occurs to me the last time I stood on this stage with Joe Biden was the last time I was in the room with Joe Biden was the last time that we were on a presidential debate stage. And with that in mind, it occurs to me that the last thing I listened to Joe Biden do while on that presidential debate stage was lie to the American people. And I think it's important that we clean that up before we move forward. Yeah, it's been 4 years, but we need to clean it up because it's very important for the American people to understand that Joe Biden stood here and lied about the laptop computer of his sons, et cetera, et cetera. And I've gone through it before. I think he should lead with that because that is going to get Joe on his heels, and it's going to immediately establish that the moderators are on Joe's side, because you know exactly how they will react to that. They will try to shut him down and shut him up. And yes, you're right, my poker players in the audience, that it could be a chopped pot. You're right, we could have the same hand. So what are the likely outcomes? There are 4 basic outcomes of this debate. And it involves a lot. Well, I'll go through them. Outcome number 1 is the one that I think all of us are expecting, or all of us are, dare I say, hoping for, and maybe we shouldn't, because that outcome involves replacing Joe Biden. So outcome number 1 is that if Joe Biden just can't manage to handle 90 minutes on the stage without prepared remarks, and he melts down in some fashion. So much so that it gives the Democrats, who set this up this early for this reason, an opportunity to pick another candidate. Now, that is a short-term, huge victory for Donald Trump. It actually might be, and I don't want to give anybody any ideas here, this might be the best long-term outcome for Democrats. Have you thought about this? I'm just analyzing it from a political perspective. There's no way that I'm voting for a Democrat candidate. For most of you, there's no way you're voting for a Democrat candidate. But there are some people that are not going to vote for Joe Biden that might vote for another Democrat. A more palatable Democrat, somebody that seems to know what day it is, or could find their butt with a compass and a flashlight. So the first scenario is, and 2847, I see you there. Why would bringing up the laptop be stupid? Bringing up yes, people should know that the FBI the fix was in against Donald Trump. They should know all these things. They should know that this current president of the United States is in bed with China and Ukraine. I disagree with you on that, but I don't want to get distracted. So if Joe Biden poops the bed, or his pants, as they say, on stage there, then he could be replaced. That's outcome number 1. Outcome number 2, both candidates look old, look unprepared. The entire thing is a mess. It's just, 2 old guys mumbling about their various policy positions. Joe Biden doesn't look very mentally fit. Donald Trump doesn't look very prepared or whatever. And I think that's ultimately a long-term win for Trump, because Joe Biden is currently the president and his policies have presented a mess of a country right now. Number 3 scenario is that both candidates look pretty good. So in one scenario, Trump looks good and Biden looks bad. Scenario number 2, they both look bad. Scenario number 3, they both look good. That somehow they pumped Joe full of a concoction and Donald Trump is focused and laser focused on policy positions, and, Biden is going back at him, and they both look pretty good. That's probably a net draw. Or if the country doesn't get back on track, a win for Trump ultimately. And then the final possibility is that somehow Biden looks good and Trump looks bad, which I would consider the least likely scenario. But I would say this too, that if that's the only scenario that I think Joe Biden comes out a winner here, long term, is that if Donald Trump looks just horrible and he looks great, which I don't think is possible. But I'm just working through the scenarios. So if you put this in the poker parlance, 3 out of the 4 scenarios that I presented to you are good for Trump. So this is a good bet for the Republicans, even though the Democrats set up all the rules, even though it's a 3-against-1 scenario, even though that they're doing it for their own purposes, it is still a good bet for Trump to go in there and blaze away. And yes, 5327 put it right. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? If you feel better off, then maybe you should vote for this. If you feel like our borders are secure and American sovereignty is A-OK, then maybe you should vote for this guy. If you think that our foreign entanglements have not drawn us closer than ever before to World War III with Russia, then maybe you should vote for this guy. But if you feel like your wallet is being stretched thin and your dollar is not going as far as it should and you've got way too many illegal aliens running around your state or your community, if you feel like we've got too many foreign entanglements going, come on, man. You know where to go. I'll take some cheap gas and a southern border wall and some mean tweets any day. It's 2:21 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to talk to you about the second annual Rudy Kalis Celebrity Golf Classic presented in honor of, to support, and a fundraiser for Men of Valor as they continue the work of reconciling men to God and their families and society. Men of Valor truly is a ministry of hope. It's taking place on Monday, July 22nd. With a 9 a.m. shotgun start. Registration breakfast begins at 7:30. It's at Hermitage Golf Course. That's on Old Hickory Boulevard at the President's Reserve. That's the That's the sheep side, by the way, the sheep side of things. There's one side, they have two 18-hole golf courses, and one side has the sheep, the black-faced sheep, and the other side does not. This is the sheep side. Rudy Kados will be there, more importantly, joined by friends of his and friends of Men of Valor, folks like Vince Gill, Derek Mason, George Plaster, Chris Sanders, Kevin Dyson, and so much more, many more to come. We'll be doing our show from the golf course that day from noon until 3. Come join us for a great day of competitive fun, breakfast, lunch, silent auctions, contests, and so much more. And most importantly, testimonies and the story of what God is doing to the hearts of man through Men of Valor. It is a wonderful organization. I cannot tell you how proud I am to be able to tell you about the organization and the event, Monday, July 22nd. Find out more at men-of-valor.org. That's www.men-of-valor.org for registration and more details, and we'll see you on the 22nd with Men of Valor.
We'll have President Biden's reaction to today's Supreme Court gun ruling, and some potential GOP VP choices are speaking today at the Faith and Freedom Conference. We'll let you in on that as well. That's all coming up at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's called the Dentist Newscast because it happens at 2:30. Don't shake your head at me. It's Friday. It's late in the day. I'm doing the best I can. Don't give me that. This is good stuff. That would be considered a quality piece of humor on the Dan Mandis Nashville Morning News Show.
Bell, you don't have
higher standards here.
Bell, you don't have like a groan sound effect in there somewhere? Yeah, or that maybe.
I'll do it for you, Bell. That's okay. That's fine. Hey, speaking of that sounder, do that sounder again for what's happening in Nashville. Apparently on the 29th of June. Do that one more time. You hear we're getting a Pride crosswalk. Isn't that nice?
How have I lived without this?
I know. I don't predict this is going to go well for them. So the mayor, here's the funny thing. The mayor has been quick to say that they didn't have anything to do with it. According to spokesperson for Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell, the mayor's office says that they have no official role in the implementation of a gay pride crosswalk in the city. Apparently, the mayor's office did not sign off on this project, according to their spokesperson, Alex Apple, and had no answers as to how much it will cost the city, if anything, to implement and maintain the crosswalk. Nashville's new crosswalk was approved after a collaboration between the Metro Nashville LGBTQ Caucus, the Nashville Department of Transportation, Metro Nashville Councilmember Clay Capp, and Nashville Pride, according to the Tennessee Star. So Apple referred the Star to the Nashville Department of Transportation regarding the question of the cost of maintenance, and that entity did not return a request to the Tennessee Star. So we're getting a new crosswalk. Where is this crosswalk happening? It's on June 29th at the intersection of 14th Street and Woodland Street. I do not predict that this will go well.
Are they going to use one of those paint rollers that doesn't need paint?
Oh, I saw that. You saw that? Yeah, I tweeted that. So here's the question. How are they going to keep cars from driving on it?
Well,
because that's been a problem in other cities. They've actually tried to arrest people for driving on these pride crosswalks in other cities. Let's see what happens in ours.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to end well. But, there you go. All right. Also coming up, we're going to, in the spirit of First Amendment Freestyle Friday, for those who missed it, and plus I've got a boogie. In a moment, for those who missed Bryland Hollyhand, you're going to hear him in just a moment. His book is called One Generation Away. Listen up for that after Jay Harper and the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon. It's 2:30. Oh, boy. And I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. I can't get Matt's explanation on 2:30 out of my head here. We've got sunshine, 94 degrees on Music Row. And the forecast, it's a hot one for the weekend. The Supreme Court upholding a ban on guns for people under domestic violence restraining orders. This is the court's first Second Amendment case since they expanded gun rights 2 years ago. ABC News White House correspondent Karen Travers, she's got the reaction on all this from President Biden.
President Biden praised the Supreme Court's ruling, saying it safeguards, quote, critical protections for survivors of domestic violence and their families. The president saying in a statement, quote, no one who has been abused should have to worry about their abuser getting a gun. The president highlighted his work over his career on gun safety, including the Violence Against Women Act and the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. And he once again called on Congress to, quote, take action to stop the epidemic of gun violence.
Also in Washington, D.C., some Republican vice presidential shortlisters are speaking at the Faith and Freedom Conference that's taking place in D.C. We'll hear now from Perry Russum.
Republican VP hopeful Congresswoman Elise Stefanik in what sounded like a campaign speech.
Are we ready to re-elect my good friend and your good friend, President Donald J. Trump?
The Congresswoman from New York says her state is in play to be won by Trump.
Democrats are in big, big trouble.
She's blasting President Biden for inflation and crime.
We are going to run and we are going to win on securing the border.
That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.